Hey, welcome to the Treehouse Athenaeum, a place to discover the tools that empower you to embrace both the beauty and challenges of personal growth. There are so many branches leading to your roots. Come on, let's explore.
Hi everyone, welcome back to the Treehouse. We are so excited to be with you this week. We, in this case, of course, being me, Lisa, and Daniela.
Hello.
Hi Daniela.
Hi.
How are you feeling?
Good. Feeling good. I'm excited about today's topic.
What? Oh, is that what's got you feeling good?
Yeah.
Okay, tell us more.
So we're going to be discussing the 5 and maybe beyond love languages and some stuff that I learned literally just now about why your love language might be your love language, and also learning about this, how it will translate into better relationships with your people.
Ooh, okay, all right. So, love languages, I feel like it's one of those things that just about everybody has heard of at some point. At least, like, if you're listening to this podcast, I think it's probably a pretty good chance that you've heard of the love languages before. And if you haven't, that's okay. We will go through them real quickly here. It's going to be acts of service, quality time, gift giving, physical touch, and words of affirmation. I don't know how I forgot words of affirmation. We'll get there.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell me about your introduction to love languages. Like, what's your first memory of ever talking about this?
I think it was talking with my best friend, and I think it was either high school or college. And I remember taking a quiz. So I've never read the book, but I remember taking some quiz, and then I remember talking at length about why I love that so much. Like, why my top love language is my top love language. You know, when you have all the time in the world, because my love language is quality time.
Yeah.
When you have all the time in the world when you're younger, it's easier to display, I think, which makes it harder when you're an adult and you want to have some quality time with your friends and everyone's married and has kids and responsibilities. And it's like, but I want to go to the grocery store with you and just chit chat. And
Yes!
everyone's like, the grocery store is me time now. And I'm like, okay.
Being in your 30s is tough, man. And actually, it's funny that you mentioned the grocery store example specifically, because in my 20s, I lived with my best friend, and he and I would go to the grocery store and just, instead of talking, we would just Harlem shake down the aisles, because that was the thing at the time, and it was just nice to not do anything super serious. And it was something that was so specific to him. Like, there's no way I would have tried it with anyone else, because it's like, that was a love language specific to us. We didn't have to say anything to understand, like, this is me telling you that I very much love you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for those of you that aren't familiar with it, the book that we're talking about is by Gary Chapman. It is called The 5 Love Languages. And this picture, man, like, I don't know. It looks like B-roll for The Bachelor or something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. When was it written?
When was it written?
Yeah.
92.
Oh,
1992 was the first publication, which is odd. I thought it was a little bit older than that, but I guess
I did too. Yeah.
not. And it kind of seems to stand the test of time, too. Until they decide that adding memes to the list would make sense, which, to be fair, is one of my secret love languages as well. Let's talk through them.
Yep.
You said that quality time is your top love language. So tell me about your relationship to quality time.
I think quality time, just time in general, but I think if you're in the right relationship, friendship, whatever situation, any time can turn into quality time with some good conversations. So it's just spending time together. That is not... See, this is probably where it gets hard, because I love both things. I love sitting in a room and doing things independently, and I love sitting... Because for me, I would say... Maybe that's not quality time, but it is time. But quality time is like doing things together intentionally, like going to the grocery store together and shopping together and just chit-chatting while you're doing it. Or, you know, going on a more formal thing like a date or a road trip, like the actual driving part is quality time in addition to whatever you're doing together at the destination. So I would say that's quality time. But I like all time. I like to spend time with my people because then you get the little you know, the little bits that you don't get to see in the more formal. Like I can go have a dinner date with you, but I'm not going to see the little quirks that I'm going to see when we're grocery shopping or baking together or, you know, doing something a little less choreographed, I guess. And that's what I enjoy seeing.
What do you mean by less choreographed?
Well, I mean, you know, going out to dinner is such a song and dance. You already know what you're getting into. You already know the mechanics of it. You go, you dress up kind of, maybe. You go, you get a drink at the bar, and then you go sit down, drink a little bit more, have dinner, talk about food. Like, and of course you're going to have good conversation, but maybe the little, like, things that make you, like the tiny details, probably aren't going to come out at dinner. But they are going to come out when we're talking about why you use that measuring spoon and not that measuring spoon, and why your junk drawer looks like that, and why, you know, like, I like those little, I don't know, those things.
You know, it's so funny that you say that because recently when I came to Orlando to visit you and Dave, you and I went to another mutual friend's apartment and we were looking for matches, maybe?
Oh, a lighter, something, yeah.
It was something fire related. And I was like, oh yeah, like I know exactly where this is. And I happened to go into the correct junk drawer and reach into the right side. And I hadn't been in this apartment, obviously, in years, but it was just like, that was one of those moments where I thought, you know, I really do have some like really intimate familiarity with this friend, because that's not anything that you ever think about. Like, I never look at you, Daniela, and I'm like, you know what? That is a girl that really likes Gothic architecture. Like, it's never anything I consciously think about with you. But it is one of those things where if I do see Gothic architecture out in the wild, I'm like, Daniela, you have to see this. This made me think of you.
Yeah.
And I think I've heard about this on the internets as glimmers. Have you heard of this concept of glimmers?
No.
Oh, okay. So it's like, just like a little, like, it's like when you're looking at the water, right? And it's, you just see like a little glimmer on the top of it. It's just like a little moment in time that reminds you that, you know, things are still sparkly. They're still hopeful.
Aww.
It's still like this little flash of just joy in your life.
How romantic. That's cute.
Yeah. Super romantic. If you went outside, you might.
I know. I see glimmers in bathwater, maybe. I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, in the moat outside of your Victorian castle.
Mm-hmm.
It's nice. Thank you for letting me across your moat. I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
So the
My
drawbridge is quality time for you.
Yeah.
Okay.
What about you?
Well, like my top love language or how I experience quality time?
No, your top love language. Unless you still want to talk about quality time. Is there more to say about quality time?
We'll get back to it, you know. Mine is physical touch, which always makes me feel like a little, you know, makes me feel some type of way. And that's for a couple of reasons. First of all, it makes me sound like a horn dog. Second of all, we haven't gotten this far in the podcast yet, but when you're looking at the Enneagram, every single type has 3 subtypes available, and those subtypes are the same across the board. So you could either be a self-preservation type, you could be a sexual type, 1-to-1, or you could be a social type. And I am a sexual type 3, which is that kind of 1-to-1 interaction. And the way that I remember this showing up is in a bunch of different ways. Like, it's not all just like, oh yeah, I want to make out with you, and that's how I show you that, like, you matter to me, because that's only appropriate in some types of relationships, right? But there was a big portion of my life where if I wanted to show someone support, I would go up to them and cup their elbow. I don't know if you remember that. Did I do that to you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Just
that
like
was
a
such
random
an insane
thing.
memory that just came back, yeah.
Oh, why? What was it?
Just because I wasn't expecting it.
Oh, yeah, never. Well, that's kind of the point, right? Like to jostle you out of it and be like, yeah, I just want you to remember that I love you and that this is important or whatever. But yeah, so like in middle school, right, I was always like, I would see the girls that would link arm with the boys and like walk around. And I was like, oh my God, that must mean they're like so popular and so desirable, but like nobody wants to walk around and link arms with me or anything like that. I'm not really sure, like, why this stuck with me like it did, but it's like if you are willing to share your space with me, then to me that says like, okay, you can come on in, you know. It's something I've never really pulled apart before. That was kind of uncomfy.
Yeah, interesting, but like also sweet, you know, because like being in someone's space, whether it is their physical space or like their bubble or their home, you know, you are entering their world. And it's funny because while you said that about the cupping the elbow thing, it is. So I came from a very physically affectionate family. My family were Latino, you know, it's just what we do. But also, I am not super physically affectionate. And I don't know, that could be pulled apart, but probably not right now. So, like, I am physically affectionate with my son, but it's not my first grab when I'm like, want to show love. Quality time is, or like, I don't know, gift giving, which is another one we'll get to. But I am with my kid, and I'm used to being physically affectionate or receiving a lot of physical affection from my family. But it like jars me when other people do it to me, but in a good way. Like I have this complex that I look closed off all the time, and like I don't want a hug from you. And like usually, if you're a stranger, I don't want a hug from you, right? So like it's like go away. But also, I want my friends to know that if they want a hug, they can hug me. Like, I love a good hug. Who doesn't love a good hug? But because I'm in my head so much, and because I'm so, like, constantly just going up here, that is such a good grounding technique. Because it does, you're right. It just kind of pulls you into the present moment. Anyway, I'm processing that because that is such a good tool for seeing some of your friends who may be constantly overthinking or in a moment where they're like, I don't know, in their head about something. That's such a great tool. Oh my God. My mind is kind of blown right now.
Cup your friends' elbows.
Yeah.
And you know, like the thing that frustrates me, I guess, about that being the way that I receive love is that it's the only one that needs like consent. Like explicit consent, you know, which is not to say that I'm like going around like, man, I wish I could touch everything all the time, but like it comes with a certain kind of bias, I guess.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. It hits you a certain type of way to be like, oh, okay, well, the way that I receive love is one that I have to explicitly ask for. And I guess like it's good. Well, I don't guess. I know it's good to ask for the things that you need to feel cared for. And at the same time, that's kind of an uncomfy one. And I had a partner at one point who that was his lowest on like the 5 was the physical touch. So he just didn't think about it very often. Or like he would be hugging me and I'd be like, why are you looking all over the place? Like you want this to end
be in
immediately.
The moment. Yeah,
and he's like, well, I love you. I'm like, well, you're not showing it. And it was because that was my top love language, but it was very low on the list for him. And I think that there's something to be said about what you prefer to show love, like with, and how you receive it as well. So we've gone through how both of us like to receive with quality time and physical. But do you have one of the love languages, one of the other 3 love languages that's top for you in terms of like how you show love?
Probably acts of service for me is what comes naturally because I want to get in there and help. So, ironically, the example that's coming to me was not done by me, was done by one of my friends, but is an example that I think about a lot in terms of like just getting in there and helping out. One of my friends just like walked into my house and it's wedding week. It's chaotic. We're trying to gather everything to get to the Airbnb. and I have all my little projects everywhere, you know. She really dove right in and just went to work on making sure that I had everything I needed. And so I like to be that friend and to other people too. And if I go over to your house or whatever and I see, especially a new mom, I think about this a lot. Like, if you have kids, that is where I feel I can most be of service, because I already know the drill. I already know how everything goes. So if I see something in progress, bottles are in the sink or something, I'm just going to get in there and wash it. If you're going to the bathroom, I'm just going to wash them really quick, because I know what it's like to have a million things to do. And it's a little quick thing that I can do that'll go a long way. Maybe you won't notice it then. I most likely will not bring attention to it. I'm just going to set them on, let them air dry on your little rack and go back and sit down on the couch, So those kinds of things. If you have a dog and your dog is like at the back door, I'm going to let the dog out. It's just little things that I can do to ease your current moment or future moment.
How likely were you to do that before you had a job in the service industry?
Ooh, Lisa. Whoa.
Sorry, I didn't mean to coach you.
Damn.
It just happens.
You know what? Probably not likely. I'm trying to think of like... You're right. Pre-service industry, Daniela, I think would have felt too nervous to get in there.
Why?
Touching other people's things can be personal. And some people don't want you to touch their things. And I think doing it the wrong way is something I was very nervous about when I was younger. So, like, I just preferred to not unless you tell me explicitly how you want it. So, but also I was the kid that I was, like, always into hair and makeup. And so I was always doing people's hair and makeup. But, again, I offered. So it wasn't like I just got in there and did it. But I enjoyed doing it. Is it an act of service if you get enjoyment out of it, too? I mean, yeah, it's still an act of service. But
because the whole prompt was, which one do you feel like, how do you think you give love best,
Yeah. And I definitely, there was a whole period in my life where I really wanted to go to cosmetology school so bad. And it's funny because when I learned a little bit into astrology that Venus is my chart ruler, I was like, God, I fucking knew it. So,
okay. Yeah. So it sounds like acts of service was something that was already within your nature, but you got better at reading the nonverbal cues as, via your occupation. And that's what built the confidence. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah. Because I think what I weighed before was, are they going to appreciate that I did this even if I did it wrong? And I always thought they probably would just want to do it themselves, because that's me. I would rather, if you're going to do it wrong, I'd rather just do it myself instead of have to go behind you and redo it. But also I'm a lot less neurotic about that these days. So it's just growing up a little, maybe. Virgo in your big three.
Oh my God.
really does something to you.
If astrology isn't real, then why are all Virgos embarrassed by having Virgo in their big three?
Yeah.
It's embarrassing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. This whole conversation, with the acts of service specifically, reminds me of that episode of Friends where Chandler wants to do something really nice for Monica, so he cleans the entire apartment, and everyone else is like, "Why would you do that? You can't just move her stuff; she'll know." And he goes, "Yeah, well, I was smart about it. I took a picture so I can see where everything was." And he stresses out about it, thinks he finally has it. Monica walks in the door. Why is everything different? I'm always afraid of that with the bigger scale things, but it is also my inclination to do acts of service. But unlike you, I have a very hard time doing it without getting permission from other people. Mm-hmm. Which is rough, because it's I can see what needs to be done, but I don't want them. I guess the inner story that I have is I don't want them to think that I think they're incompetent or incapable of doing it themselves, even if it is a nice thing to do, or like I'm violating their privacy. But I remember what you were talking about. You told me, like, yes, the Airbnb thing with your wedding, but also you told me about when one of your best friends came over and just cleaned the house after you'd had your son. And you mentioned, like, there are very few people that I would feel comfortable having do that too.
Yes.
So I think that kind of speaks to the layers within your life. But it sounds like you're comfortable performing acts of service more so than receiving them.
That's probably true. I don't know that I would walk into just anyone's house and clean their house for them. You know, there was that level of intimacy there where I don't think there's anything that she would come across and be like, what's this? Because she knows everything about my life. So it's like, you know, and ironically, we then did that for our other best friend when she had her baby. And again, it was like, I don't think we came across a single thing. And we restructured her whole apartment. I don't think there was any moment that felt weird or like there's a certain intimacy involved with some of the acts of service, I think is what I'm getting at. But also knowledge, like there's a certain, like you said, competency. Like I feel competent in mom tasks. So, and I know, like, there's a whole thing about bottles. Like, do you put your bottles in the dishwasher? I personally am a no to that because the whole reason that they say you shouldn't, the argument that won me over is there's like a whole bunch of food and gross stuff in your dishwasher that might just be like going around, and you want to keep your bottles and your bottle pieces as sterile as possible. So I'm a hand wash my bottles only kind of mom. And so because of that, I feel pretty safe jumping in if someone were to need that. So it's not like I would go in and try and do your taxes, and I'm not an accountant. So that is like scary, right? I'm not going to step in and take over for you if I'm not competent at it, number one. And number two, you don't know that I'm competent at it, because it's such a thing that there's nothing that I can say in the moment to convince you that I'm competent. You kind of already have to know.
I feel that. And I think that having the work experience of being a mom, I don't know why I said it like that. That is some hardcore work that y'all do as mothers.
Yeah.
But that enabled you to unlock this whole other like thing that you felt comfortable doing. Because I remember two of my close friends, when they had a baby, they were telling me all about like how all of these different things work and the things to keep in mind and what temperature you should freeze breast milk to and all these things. And I don't want kids. Like, I really love my friends' daughters. They're my nieces. But I didn't really feel comfortable jumping in and helping out until the girls got a little bit older, and it wasn't doing things that are like just a part of the routine. It was more about like, let me organize the playroom for you because I love to organize and I know that this would be of help to you. I also understand toddlers can, you know, undo all of that work in like 2 seconds, but they were a little bit less likely to do that with me.
It's still helpful. Yeah.
Yeah. So acts of service, that one is hard for me to receive. I think because I was a server for so long, and because my like career as a coach is very service oriented. Like, how can I think in service of you? Like, how can I come up with questions in service of you? So for years and years and years, it's been this thing where it's like, if I think about me rather than the person that I am working with, then I am doing something wrong, which makes it hard when I'm just out here living my life as Lisa, no title, to be receiving it. And my current partner, that's his biggest love language, how he likes to show is acts of service. So that's been a real learning experience for me, is letting him take care of me. And it's not one that I necessarily like. I like getting to learn that. I feel safe learning that with him. Those are all big things, but also I'm a 3. I don't love doing things that I'm not good at in front of people that I want to impress.
Yeah.
So I think we call that growth, baby. But the thing that I am good at, as far as showing one of these love languages, is also one that we haven't mentioned yet, which is words of affirmation. I friggin' love words of affirmation. I like getting them too. And that's definitely something that I need, but it's not something that I need every single step of the way. I need it in there. I need you to remind me, like, not only that you like being around me, but like, cite your work, dude. Like,
right.
You don't have to do it in APA format, but I don't want you to just say, well, you make me happy. Well, what do I do that makes you happy? So like, it's just something I need. It's something I need. So because of that, I think that I'm exceptional at words of affirmation because I am so in tune with the little things, and I know how it feels to have somebody find those little things that you thought nobody else could see and be like, I see that and I like it. So I would say that one's like second on my list of things that I like to receive, but it is far and away the one that is easiest for me to do for other people.
Really? Because I feel like you are good at it. Because, okay, so I think I'm a step further from what you're saying. Me and compliments have a hard relationship. I do need you to cite your sources in AP format when you're giving me a compliment because I won't believe you. So it's one of those things that you do cite your source when you give a compliment, which to me, if you're going to give me a word of affirmation, I mean, that's how to do it. So like, I don't know, I guess because of that, because it's always spoken to me when you've done it, I've always thought, oh, she's good at words of affirmation.
Oh, no, that's what I'm saying. That's what I feel strongest on doing.
Okay.
I feel second strongest on receiving it.
Ah, yes.
But, I mean, if it's going to be something that makes me feel good for other people to receive it, then it's the considerate thing for me to do to work on being able to receive it.
Yeah. I know.
You sound thrilled.
This is one of my friends told me once, or she said it in like a group setting because someone was complimenting me and I was so uncomfortable. And she said, you have to give it to her in in my head I remember a critical sandwich instead of a compliment sandwich. But I think she said insult sandwich. You have to give it to her in an insult sandwich. You have to tell her 2 bad things about herself and then 1 good thing, because then she'll believe you. And I was like, damn, I think that's true. Actually, I really think that's true. This morning, my husband made me an egg sandwich and I smelled it like he let me sleep in. I woke up to the smell of it and was like, yes. And I went downstairs and it like looked weird for some reason. It didn't look like our normal, I don't know. It just looked off. And so I looked at him jokingly and was like, you wouldn't poison me. And he was like, no, I don't think I'd ever get away with it. And I was like, not because you love me so much and need me in your life. And he was like, if I said that, you wouldn't believe me. And I was like, damn, that's true. That's true. So
Your
it's just
gets you.
Mm-hmm, he does. It's just like
he has studied.
Yes, I know.
Which I guess makes sense. You guys have been together for a long time. But yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Honestly, like, I've always liked your husband a lot, but every time you tell me like little things like that, I'm like, good. I trust him. I trust him with Daniela. Mm-hmm. Which is stupid because you've known him longer. But I'm just like, you're worthy. You're worthy. So you hear me? You're worthy.
Yeah. So receiving words of affirmation is hard for some, us being the sum. So, yeah. What's next?
Okay. Cool. Last one is gift giving. Gift giving. So I don't really feel very strongly about gift giving. Do you?
One of my best friends is an expert gift giver. And so when I think of gift giving, I think of her only because she just nails it every time. And it's the perfect kind of gift giving that you want. You want something that says, I know you. God, she knocks it out of the park. I literally don't know how she does it every single time, but she really just does. And stuff that I like didn't even know existed half the time. It's like not even something I would have put on a wish list if I had one. So it just is like magical to receive a gift from her, because you know, it really is a love language from her. It's not just, oh, I'm going to stop at the store and get your favorite candy. It's like, I saw this thing, or I intentionally looked for this thing, which is even crazier because some of them are so off the wall. But I saw this thing and thought of you, and I had to get it for you. And I don't know, it's like, it's magical when it's a real love language and not just a gift.
That's definitely along the lines of what I was thinking, because as you were describing this, I was just connecting it back to what you were saying about quality time. Like, there's no reason that she would know to pick out like this very specific thing for you that no one else would if she hadn't spent the quality time with you.
Yeah.
Whereas I think like a trope that you often see in like books or TV or movies is like, you know, the rich billionaire who was kind of a jerk is like trying to buy the affection of the main character or whatever. And I think that that probably is a love language to some people. Like, oh, you know, my husband's coming home with a Chanel bag.
Yeah.
And it's on the table. And it's like not anything that's like particularly poignant or like nostalgic, but the fact is he knows that that's something that you would want. So I kind of wonder if like gift giving is kind of like, I don't want to say a sub love language, because that seems insulting to people whose top language is gift giving, but it just seems like a complementary love language.
Yeah.
Like it would click into something else.
It
I don't
does,
know. What are your
yeah.
thoughts on that?
No, I get what you're saying. It requires more. Or I should say, gift giving effectively as a love language requires you to put in more effort through the other love languages, which is interesting. Yeah, that is weird, because with the other ones, you don't necessarily need anything else to, like, with time, you just need time, right? Like, you just need the time and the place.
Well, I don't know about all that. Because you can be in the same time, same place, but still not really paying attention to each other.
Well,
like,
yes. And the intent, right? The intent, I mean, I guess I would say the intent is kind of unspoken if we're talking love languages, only if you're intending to do it, right? So, yeah, being in the same place at the same time does not mean that you're spending quality time together, unless that is your intent. Same thing with words of affirmation. And kind of what we were just talking about. Like, I guess you do, words of affirmation is one that you do need to know a little bit about the person to give a good word of affirmation, although for some who consider words of affirmation their top one to receive, maybe don't need that. Maybe they just need you look beautiful today, and that's, you know, from the grocery store clerk, and that's enough. I would think that a good word of affirmation does have some of the homework attached to it, you know? So, like, because you're so observant, it makes you a good coach. Right? Like, I can bring a receipt of, like, you've coached me through many moments, and there are things that I wasn't thinking about that you brought into my view that because of whatever situation I was going through, I was blind to. And so your perspective is invaluable to me. And, like, that's true. But because I know all that, like, that kind of, I need that in order to give the word of affirmation, right? So maybe words of affirmation and gift giving both need a little bit of the others to really make it quality.
That's interesting. I think you're right. And I'm thinking like some of my favorite gifts are I have a friend that will just send me postcards randomly. He's never going anywhere when he sends it to me. It's just this pack of postcards that he has, and every once in a while he'll send me one. So, like, most recently, I think I got one that just said, "Reminder to party." Or there was one, the very first one he ever sent me was a quote from Rat Race, which is a cinematic classic comedy. If you've never seen it, it's so good. And he said, "Have you seen this room? We're standing in it." And, like, to me, like, those were, I mean, writing, like sending cards, things like that, those are words of affirmation. So, like, those postcards with one sentence on it encapsulate words of affirmation, gift giving, and quality time.
Yeah.
Because there's no way he would have known that had he not spent the quality time with me, reducing normal English down into this just kind of like inside joke vocabulary that we speak in now.
Yeah.
You know? And speaking of that, inside jokes, absolutely a love language.
Yes.
Not one of the official ones, but that's one of my big ones for sure.
Oh, I love an inside joke because again, it just says everything you just said. You have to know the person, and it requires some sort of intimacy, some sort of love between the two of you to even bring it up, because I don't want to refer back to memories of people I don't like. Like, I only want to be called back to certain moments if I love you and want to remember that and live in the nostalgia with you.
So what are some of your other love languages that maybe are not listed by Mr. Gary Chapman?
You already brought this one up, but the memes for sure. I love a good meme share, a good meme dump. I am the person who, if I have time to doom scroll, you are going to get like 15 memes from me in one sitting, and I'm not sorry. Watch at your leisure. I don't require a reaction. It's just for you. I am the cat bringing you the dead mouse. Here you go.
No, you said you were like a Doberman, remember?
Oh,
you
yeah,
said
no,
you didn't have that cat energy.
So I don't have cat energy. What would a Doberman bring you? I'm the Doberman bringing you my squeaky toy. But see, that requires you to throw it. I guess I'm just bringing you something to bring it to you. Nothing else is required. Just take it. 'Tis a gift. A gift giving? An internet gift giving? I don't know. I think it stands in its own category.
I do too. And I mean, in 1992, when this book was first published, the internet was not a thing yet. So, you know, like, I think that meme culture in general is maybe like, it has potential to be a sixth love language instituted by our generation, which is really cool to think about because the rest of them are so timeless. But like, as technology advances so much, I don't know how you would leave technology out of this conversation. And I know it's it's only 2025 and it's not like we have the flying cars yet, but look at all this other stuff. Like, video voice calls used to be this thing that seemed so futuristic. And again, I remember in Friends, Monica dated like this billionaire dude who had video voice setup because that was for billionaires and it was like embedded into his wood-paneled study. But now we just are always on video voice chat constantly on Zoom, or you and I are in our recording studio right now. And so it's just interesting to see how all of these things have kind of evolved. But I think that meme sharing is one of them. And it's like those penguins that go around collecting like rocks and like shiny things to present to their partner.
Yeah.
And I've also heard it referred to as friend homework, which I think is adorable.
Oh, that is really sweet.
Yeah. Okay. Another one that we were talking about before we started hitting record is one that I love, and it is the way that I have made most of my friendships in my 30s, coincidentally. And it's a long story how this came to be about this environment, but creating collaborative playlists is a big thing of mine. One of my really good friends, her name is Allie. The way that we became close was by creating like themed playlists while we were sitting in like a music player and just like adding things on. Like, this is going to be an alphabet themed playlist, so you do an A song, I'll do a B song. We both really love Sarah Bareilles, so we just had a night where it was all Bareilles all the time, listening to that. My best friend and I have a collaborative playlist we just started this last year, we love it, where we just, as the year goes on, we add the songs onto the playlist that we're really into, and it serves as like this time capsule of how we were feeling throughout the year or like events that are going on. So like, for example, last year she went on a trip to Albuquerque And I'm a giant Weird Al fan. Like, I love Weird Al. And he has a 12-minute long song called Albuquerque. And I added it to the playlist because it was topical and also because it was going to troll her, which I really love. So, and trolling people is like another love language for me. Yeah. I can dish it, but I can't take it. It's the best. I'm so fun to be around like that.
Yeah. I can do both for sure. I mean, I've gotten better at taking it. I've always been able to laugh at myself, but now, like, I don't know, because I always think of high school. High school's such a hard time. You don't really know too much. Now I definitely can. And so I love a good troll.
Yeah.
Not an internet troll. I mean, like one of my friends. Again, this is one of those that requires other things, friendship being the number one thing. So
be nice in the comments is what we're saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
As you were talking to, I also really love friends who, I don't know how to summarize this, but I guess improving. Like, friends who would tell me, like, hey, you know, I see you struggling with this one thing. I'm going to let you in on this thing that maybe is uncomfortable to hear, but I'm going to say it because you're obviously struggling with this. So I don't know where that necessarily fits in. I love it because if I'm doing something weird and I'm obviously fretting about it and you have the key to the knowledge that I seek, even if it's uncomfy to hear, I want to hear it because obviously I'm in pursuit of this particular knowledge. But I understand how it can be weird to call someone out on something even if you're not really calling them out. Like, if the person is asking you to call them out, it still might not be comfortable for the other person to do it because trauma, I guess, maybe, and like doing it with other people who maybe aren't so, what's the word I'm looking for? Who don't mean it, maybe, would be the simplest way to say that. I think that's a love language too of maybe that falls under trust, like an intimate trust and intention. I don't know how to categorize that. It's like I'm listening and I'm willing to get out of my comfort zone or like put myself out on the line to say this to you. And also trust that you're not going to make this a big thing or assume that I'm a villain or attacking you, maybe.
Well, it's a respect thing in a certain way, because it kind of reminds me of, like, you can't make fun of my friend. That's my friend. Only I get to make fun of them, you know? I think it's kind of along those same emotional guidelines without having like strict written rules about it.
Yeah.
I think that's part of it. And that's also something that's like good to know about you in particular, because it's difficult to trust when people say they like feedback.
Yeah.
And
feedback. That's really what we're dancing around. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Because like people will say that they like feedback, but a lot of the times what they mean is they like compliments. But you really are always in pursuit of getting better. And at the same time, like, I have observed that you are a lot more likely to take feedback from somebody that you trust and care about than somebody who you think is really annoying. Which makes sense. It's like you have to earn the right and cite your APA format, that this is why I am qualified to give you this feedback.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that there are like infinite little love languages, right? I'm pretty sure that like everybody just kind of builds their own within their individual friendships. And I know that it's nice to feel supported in the way that you want to be supported. It's nice to have someone really listen to what you have to say and keep that in mind too. So now I know quality time for you. But if you come in and you start, you know, cleaning my kitchen for me, then I'm like, she loves me. She really loves me.
Yes. I'll make sure to ask permission first.
Oh, perfect. Well, you can. You are in the tier of people that are allowed to do that.
Yeah, good.
For me, I'm just like, why would I have that permission? Okay. Daniela, any final thoughts?
Yes. Because the thing that blew my mind we didn't get around to saying before we got on here, which was why your top love language probably is your top love language, is because it is the one you lacked the most as a child.
Mm-hmm.
What?
But doesn't that make sense? Because
It
you're
does.
trying to like fill in that gap, right? So
Yeah.
like for me, gift giving is my lowest one, right? But my mom is incredible at putting together themed gifts. Like I was born in July. And she made me a birthday gift a few years ago that was like, for my July baby. And she had like all these pictures of me as like a little kid in my little kiddie pool. And she included like a crossword that I did with her one summer when I was helping her to build planters, but I had pneumonia.
Oh my God.
So I just needed to like rest in between, but she needed me to tell her like when the level bubble was level. She was laying bricks down. And just like other summery things. All of it was summer, right? So like these themed gifts were things that I had that from her. My dad was very good about like making sure that like if it was Valentine's Day, for example, he's taking care of all three of his girls, not just his wife and things like that. So that one, I don't know if it's like I don't think it's necessarily a take it for granted thing, but it was a thing that I felt like showed up very holistically in my life.
Yeah. When you said that earlier, and knowing that my top is quality time, I felt so attacked because at first I felt defensive of my mom because my mom and I did spend a lot of quality time together. So I was like, how dare this person call my mother not good at quality time? And then I was like, wait a minute though. Like, it was just us two. So I still did have a lot of like moments alone, and not for anything bad. She had to work, like she had to work, and I was an only child. And so in that very stereotypical only child thing, I was lonely a lot. Yeah. I mean, I don't know, like if we were to look at it really technically, how much loneliness I experienced. Like I definitely wasn't in like a severe lack category, but it was obviously something that I carried forward with me and knew that, I would want quality time to be like a thing in my life, which is crazy. And physical touch being among my lowest, again, I had a plethora. I had an abundance of physical touch. My family is very affectionate, and most of her friends, again, being in the Latinx culture, like we're all just very physically affectionate. I never lacked that. So I don't know. It's that there's something to that. So I feel like if you are talking to your partner about love languages, if you haven't, because it's also very maybe presumptive for us to assume that everyone has had this conversation with their partner,
Right.
because
You should, though.
we live in this lane. Yeah. But it's interesting to think about, especially it being your partner and probably knowing a lot about their childhood. It's interesting to think about it in that perspective, because my husband's is words of affirmation. So like it made me kind of think back and be like, whoa, like where did you not feel, and when was this? And so like being able to unlock another level with your partner through exploring these things is just, even your friends, is like something I just love to do. I was that person that on road trips, I was like, let's get just questions from the internet and just talk to each other that way. So This is one of those things that it's like, I don't know, what a weird gift in and of itself to like have that little piece of knowledge. And then also knowing that about other people kind of gives you insight and hopefully gives you a little bit of empathy into what they themselves experienced. And again, maybe it wasn't like a deep-seated trauma, but still kind of opens you up to who they are as a person. Like, I don't know, it's cool. I like it. That whole just blew my mind.
Yeah, and I'm with you. Like, it doesn't have to be a deficiency. Like, certainly there are people that have trauma attached to it, but also if there's a difference in the love language that we like to give versus the one that we receive the best, then it makes sense that your parents may have just like not thought about it because it was something that was lower on their list or whatever. Like, right. There are lots of different reasons for these things being true. So I'm hearing you talk about your Latina family and how like that, like the culture of like just everything is out loud, right? Like you
Yeah.
guys have passionate conversations and passionate arguments, and like it's a high touch thing. And that's like not a knock on my family. It's just that just happened to be the thing that we prioritize the lowest. And I think that like words of affirmation is something that I'm good at, because when I was home the last time, I had this really weird experience where I was sitting in the living room with my mom and my uncle, my uncle's wife, and my cousin, and my sister. And I realized that we all tell stories very similarly. Like, very tongue-in-cheek, very animated, like, kind of this, like, sly sense of humor. And I was like, well, this makes sense, because this is where we concentrated our efforts, was in storytelling. And that, I think, in and of itself is kind of a love language as well. Particularly when I think about, like, my family in general. My mom made this incredible calendar where she implemented all these pictures throughout the years of like her siblings and, you know, pretty much anyone that was around before our generation of kids was. And then my grandfather also made sure to write like this giant memoir, so none of his like cool stories got lost. And I often say that I have 2 life mottos, but one of them is do it for the stories. And as I'm talking through this out loud, I'm like, oh, that's where that came from. And it's something that I'm like super appreciative of. So
Yeah, that's really cool.
that's what I have to say about that. Well, thank you for joining us in the treehouse. We had a lot of fun with you today, as always.
And we will see you next time.
Thanks for joining us in the treehouse today. We were so happy to have you. Hey, if you enjoyed your time here today, could you do us one little favor and pass this on to someone else who might enjoy it? We appreciate you so much. See you next week.